There are sounds that are woven into the fabric of our childhoods. The crinkle of candy wrappers, the squeak of a swing set, and the triumphant call of "Ollie Ollie oxen free" that signals the end of a game. For so many of us, hide and seek was our first taste of real adventure. It was a game that transformed ordinary places, a musty closet, the space under the stairs, the darkness behind the sofa, into landscapes of infinite possibility and secret thrill. It was a dance between silence and discovery, between the frantic pulse of a hiding heart and the creeping dread of approaching footsteps. We believed, in our childish innocence, that we were the masters of this game, that we chose the rules, that we controlled the darkness. But the darkness has a life of its own, and sometimes it decides to play along. These are not stories of imagination. They are accounts, passed from trembling lips, of games where the line between play and peril dissolved, and the participants learned a horrifying truth. You are never truly alone when you choose to hide. 3 scary, true story, hide-and-seek horror stories. Story 1, The Extra Hider. The memory is etched into my cousin Sarah's mind with the clarity of a shard of glass. She was 10 years old, all scraped knees and boundless energy, at our grandparents' annual family reunion. The house was a relic, a grand, aging Victorian monstrosity that seemed to breathe with a life of its own. It was a labyrinth of forgotten parlors, a dusty attic filled with sheet-shrouded furniture that looked like sleeping ghosts, and closets so deep and dark they felt less like storage and more like portals. The adults were clustered in the kitchen and living room, a warm, noisy island of chatter and clinking glasses. The children, 7 in total, had claimed the sprawling upper floor. Boredom quickly set in, and the timeless solution was proposed: hide and seek. Sarah, being the eldest of the kids, was designated the first seeker. She remembers the feel of the cool, varnished wood of the hallway door against her forehead as she began to count. 1, 2, 3. Her voice was loud and clear, cutting through the hushed silence of the upstairs. She could hear the frantic, muffled giggles and scampering footsteps of the others fading away into the depths of the house. 48, 49, 50. Ready or not, here I come, she announced, pushing the door open. The hunt began. It was a classic search. She found her little brother Tommy almost immediately, his small body an obvious lump behind the living room's thick velvet curtains. He giggled uncontrollably as she pulled the fabric back. Next, she discovered 2 of our cousins, Mark and Lily, crammed into a linen closet, their faces flushed and triumphant until she swung the door open. One by one, she ferreted them out from under beds and behind large armchairs. Soon, she had a small, chattering group following her through the hallways. As they gathered in the wide, second-floor landing, Sarah did a quick head count, a satisfied smile on her face. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. She had them all. But as her eyes scanned the group, her smile faltered. Her brain, faster than her conscious thought, registered a discrepancy. The number felt wrong. She counted again, slower this time, pointing at each child. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7. A cold, slick feeling, like a trickle of ice water, started in her stomach and spread outwards. There were only 6 other children. There should only be 6. "Boo, who are you?" Sarah asked, her voice barely a whisper, losing its earlier confidence. The other children fell silent, looking from Sarah to each other in confusion. Mark, a pragmatic boy of 9, frowned. "What do you mean? There's 6 of us. You found everyone." "No," Sarah insisted, her heart beginning to beat a frantic, panicked rhythm against her ribs. "I counted 7. I see 7 of you right now." A heavy silence descended upon the group, broken only by the soft, settling groan of the old house. It was in that silence that a figure at the very back of the group moved. A little girl stepped forward. She was slight, with hair the color of pale dust, and she wore a dress that was visibly old-fashioned. A high collar, a fitted bodice, a skirt that fell to her shins, all in a faded, washed-out blue floral print. No one recognized her. No one had ever seen her before. She didn't speak. She simply looked directly at Sarah with eyes that were too dark, too deep for a child's face. And then she smiled. It was a slow, deliberate motion that stretched her pale lips thin, a gesture that held no warmth, no joy. It was a smile of quiet, unsettling knowledge. Then she turned. The group of children parted for her as if by an unspoken command. She walked calmly down the hallway, not towards the staircase or any of the bedrooms, but towards a dead-end wall dominated by a large, heavy tapestry depicting a hunting scene. She didn't pause. She didn't reach for a hidden seam. She simply took one final step forward and melted into the tapestry. The thick, woven fabric didn't rustle, didn't shift. It was as if she had been a projection that was suddenly switched off. The spell broke. A chorus of screams erupted. The children tumbled down the stairs in a terrified heap, a jumble of limbs and hysterical sobs, babbling to the bewildered adults about a strange, silent girl. The adults, of course, launched a thorough search of the house, chuckling nervously about overactive imaginations and the spooky atmosphere of the old place. They found nothing. No hidden passages, no lost child from the neighborhood. The game was abandoned, and the weekend concluded under a cloud of unease. But the story didn't end there. Years later, as a teenager, Sarah was helping our grandmother sort through a box of old photographs in that very same house. She pulled out a heavy, leather-bound album. As she flipped through the stiff black pages, her blood ran cold. There, in a formal portrait from what looked like the early 1900s, was a group of stern-faced children arranged on the grand staircase. And standing at the end of the second row, wearing the exact same faded blue floral dress, her expression solemn and her eyes just as dark and hollow, was the little girl. The extra hider. She hadn't been a stranger, she had been family. And she had never really stopped playing. Story 2. The Count That Never Stopped. If Sarah's story is one of a ghostly intruder, then David's is a tale of a game hijacked by something far more insidious. David grew up in a lonely, wind-battered farmhouse on the outskirts of a small, rural town. The nearest neighbor was a mile away, and the landscape was one of endless fields and a vast, imposing sky. One gloomy, rain-soaked afternoon, with a storm brewing on the horizon, David and his 7-year-old sister Emily were confined to the house. To stave off boredom, they resorted to the classic indoor sport, hide and seek. David at 12 was it. He stood in the center of the worn living room rug, face buried in the crook of his arm, the smell of old wood and polish filling his nostrils. He began to count, his voice loud and confident. 1, 2, 3. He could hear the quick, light pattering of Emily's bare feet on the hardwood floors as she scurried away, followed by the creak of a floorboard upstairs and the soft click of a door closing. He smiled to himself. She was taking it seriously this time. 18, 19, 20. Ready or not, here I come, he called out, dropping his arm. The house was plunged into a deep, waiting silence, broken only by the distant rumble of thunder and the steady drumming of rain on the roof. He started his search with methodical precision. He checked under their parents' large bed, in the hall closet behind the shower curtain. He even braved the cobweb-draped darkness under the basement stairs. No Emily. A flicker of admiration mixed with mild irritation. She'd found a good spot. After 10 minutes of fruitless searching, he decided to call it. "All right, Em, you win. You're the champion. Come on out now," he shouted, his voice echoing through the empty rooms. Silence. He called again, a little louder, a thread of unease weaving into his words. "Emily, the game is over. Come out." Nothing. The silence felt heavier now, oppressive. The initial flicker of worry ignited into a small flame of panic. He raced through the house again, this time with less method and more desperation, throwing open doors he'd already checked, his calls becoming more frantic. "Emily, this isn't funny." He was on the verge of truly losing it, his mind conjuring images of her having somehow slipped outside when he heard it. A faint, rhythmic sound, barely audible over the rain. It was coming from his parents' bedroom at the end of the hall. He crept to the door, his heart hammering, and pushed it open. The sound was clearer now, a soft, whispered, monotone counting. 47, 48, 49. It was Emily's voice, but it was utterly flat, stripped of all the life and laughter that usually filled it. It was the voice of a machine, or of something repeating words it didn't understand. "Emily?" David said, his own voice trembling. "What are you doing? The game is over. I quit. You win." She was sitting on the floor in the far corner of the room, her back to him, her knees drawn up to her chest. Her small frame was perfectly still. She didn't acknowledge him in any way. 51, 52, 53. The dead whisper continued. "Emily, stop it. You're scaring me," David yelled, the fear now a cold fist closing around his throat. He stepped into the room, the floorboards creaking, and he reached out and placed a shaking hand on her shoulder. She was ice cold that seeped through her pajamas and into his palm. At his touch, the counting stopped abruptly. Her head began to turn, not with the quick, fluid motion of a child, but slowly, mechanically, like the hands of a clock. She looked at him over her shoulder. Her face was a mask of pale, waxy skin. Her eyes were wide open, staring, but they were unseeing, fixed on some point in the middle distance. They were devoid of any recognition. She looked right through him, and in that same hollow, emotionless whisper, she said, "I'm not playing with you, David." The words struck him with physical force. The air left his lungs. Then, "Who are you playing with?" he managed to choke out. Emily didn't answer. Instead, she slowly raised a single trembling finger and pointed past him towards the open bedroom door and the dark, empty hallway beyond. The shadows in the hallway seemed to deepen, to congeal. 54, she whispered, and then, as if a switch had been flipped, she turned back to face the wall, resuming her endless, terrifying count. David stumbled backward, a scream trapped in his throat, and fled the room. He found his parents in the barn, sobbing and incoherent. When they rushed back to the house with him, Emily was just sitting in the corner, crying softly, confused and shivering. She had no memory of the counting or of what she had said. She claimed she had been hiding in the wicker laundry basket in the hallway the whole time, had gotten comfortable, and had fallen asleep. She couldn't explain how she got to their parents' room or why she was so cold. To this day, David is a haunted man. He refuses to speak of that afternoon in any detail. The official story became that Emily was sleepwalking. But David knows what he saw, he knows what he felt, and he knows with a certainty that has never left him that something was standing in that dark hallway, listening to his sister count, patiently waiting for its turn to seek. Story 3. The Game of Shadows. In the age of the internet, our games have evolved. Our playgrounds are no longer just backyards and old houses. They are forums, chat rooms, and viral videos sharing creepypastas and supernatural challenges. This is how Chloe and her 4 friends discovered the Shadow Game. It was supposed to be a sophisticated, psychological thrill. A step up from a Ouija board, or light as a feather, stiff as a board. They were renting a modern but secluded, A-frame cabin for a weekend getaway, and after a few drinks, the mood was ripe for a scare. The rules, which they read off a phone screen, were deceptively simple, yet deeply unnerving. One person is the hider. They enter a completely dark, windowless room, in this case the cabin's master bedroom, alone. No phones, no light sources of any kind. Their only job is to hide. The seeker waits outside the closed door for exactly 5 minutes, counted in silence. But here was the twist. The seeker is not seeking the person. They are seeking the person's shadow. The premise was rooted in a creepy, pseudo-scientific theory that in a state of sensory deprivation and focused intention, a person's shadow could momentarily detach from its owner, becoming a separate, sentient entity in the darkness. The seeker's job was to enter the room after the 5 minutes and, using only a single flashlight, identify the hider's shadow amongst any other dark shapes in the room. It was a test of perception, intuition, and nerve. Chloe, always the bold one, volunteered to hide first. Her friend Liam, pragmatic and skeptical, agreed to be the seeker. Chloe walked into the master bedroom and closed the door, plunging herself into an absolute, suffocating blackness. It was a void. She could see nothing, not even her hand in front of her face. The only sound was the frantic beating of her own heart. She felt her way along the wall, deciding the best spot was behind the thick, floor-length blackout curtains that covered the sliding glass door to the deck. She crouched down, making herself as small as possible, and tried to steady her breathing. The 5 minutes of silence stretched into what felt like an eternity. Each second, a weight on her chest. Finally, the wait was over. She heard the soft click of the doorknob turning. The door swung open slowly, and a sliver of yellow hallway light cut a path into the room. Liam stood there, a tall silhouette in the doorway, holding his phone with the flashlight function on. He did not step over the threshold. "Chloe?" he called softly, his voice tense. "Remember the rules. I'm not looking for you. I'm looking for your shadow. Don't move. Don't make a sound." Chloe held her breath, her muscles locked. She could see the beam of Liam's flashlight sweep across the room. It illuminated the foot of the bed, the dresser with its clutter of toiletries, the open door of the empty closet. The beam passed directly over her curtain, and for a moment, she was blinded by the light filtering through the fabric. Then, the beam stopped. It was fixed on the wall opposite her, a blank, off-white wall beside the closet. Liam was silent for a long time. Then, a soft, confused whisper. "What? What is that?" A cold dread, entirely different from the fun, scary feeling she'd had before, began to bloom in Chloe's chest. She couldn't see anything on that wall from her position. It was just a wall. Liam took a single, hesitant step into the room, his flashlight beam never wavering from the spot. "It's moving," he breathed, his voice tight with a confusion that was rapidly curdling into fear. He looked from the wall to the general area where Chloe was hiding, and back to the wall, his face a mask of disbelief in the reflected light. "That's not right. The angles are all wrong. The light, it's coming from here. Your shadow, Chloe, it's not connected to you." A jolt of pure, undiluted terror shot down Chloe's spine. "Don't move," he had said, but a primal, involuntary shudder racked her body. She shifted her weight ever so slightly, the floorboard beneath her creaking a faint protest. On the wall, the tall, distorted shadow that Liam had been watching also shifted. But it did not mirror her subtle, fearful movement. Instead, the featureless black shape on the wall turned its head. A smooth, impossible rotation, and it seemed to be looking directly at Liam, standing frozen in the doorway. Liam let out a choked, guttural sound, half gasp, half sob, and stumbled backward, his free hand flailing for the wall switch. The overhead light blazed on, flooding the room with a harsh, clinical brightness. The room was empty. The wall was blank. There was no shadow. Chloe erupted from behind the curtain, her body trembling uncontrollably. "What did you see? Liam, what did you see?" Liam was ashen, leaning against the doorframe for support. He looked at her, his eyes wide with a horror that was contagious. "I saw your shadow," he stammered. "It was standing in the middle of the room, away from you. It was just standing there. And when you moved, it moved on its own. It looked at me." The party mood was extinguished. They called the game off, spending the rest of the night huddled in the brightly lit living room, trying and failing to rationalize it away. A trick of the light, a shared hallucination, the power of suggestion. But the experience left a stain. On the long drive home the next day, Chloe couldn't shake the feeling. It was a persistent, crawling sensation between her shoulder blades, the unshakable conviction that she was being watched from the back seat. When she finally stumbled into her own apartment, her first action was to flip every light switch she passed. Exhausted but unable to rest, she stood in the center of her living room. A strange, compulsive thought entered her mind. With a trembling hand, she opened her phone's camera, switched it to selfie mode, and held it up, capturing her own weary, frightened face on the wall behind her. She looked at the screen, and her blood turned to ice. There, cast clearly on the plain white wall behind her, were two distinct shadows. One was her own, cast by the lamplight, mimicking her pose perfectly. The other, several feet to her left, was taller, thinner, and stood perfectly straight, its featureless head tilted at a slight, inquisitive angle. It wasn't mimicking her. It was just there, as if it had followed her home from the game, a silent, patient passenger. It was waiting in the light now, biding its time, waiting for the lights to go out again so it could finally properly have its turn to hide. 3 games, 3 houses, 3 moments where the simple, universal act of hiding revealed a crack in our world. An uninvited guest from a forgotten time, a count that summoned an unseen participant, a piece of oneself that decided it wanted to play its own game. We close our eyes and count, believing we are in control of the darkness we create. We forget that darkness is not an absence. It is a presence, and it is always waiting for an invitation to play. So the next time you find yourself in a dark, quiet space, holding your breath, listening for the seeker, listen more closely. You might just hear the soft, shuffling footsteps of the other hiders, the ones who never stopped playing, and the ones who are no longer playing by your rules.